Do I have sound? Oh, there you go. I'm usually loud enough with an old coach's voice that I don't need a microphone, but we're broadcasting, doing Facebook Live, and so they're telling me I need to be on a mic for Facebook Live. First off, I want to thank everyone for being here. Everyone. The most important ones are here because you're here. So thank you for taking the time to be involved in your community. Thank you for coming out. The way this will run, my name is Randy Lords. I'm the superintendent for the Madison School District. I started in the Madison School District in 2001. I was teaching and coaching in Shelley, and the principal and superintendent from here in Madison came down and said, hey, we'd like you to come to Madison, teach and coach for us, and I was happy down there. And then I went home, told my wife that I had turned down a job offer at Madison. She said, you call him back, we're going. And that was in 2001, and it was the best decision, well, second best decision. Marrying her was the first. The second was making the decision to come to Madison, not only because of the job to work here in this district, but the community we live in and the support we have for education. The way things will go is I've got about a 34-page PowerPoint that'll take about an hour and 45 minutes. I'm kidding. I've got about 10 slides that are just kind of some things to get you thinking, maybe address some questions. We have an amazing social media director, Mikkel Chavez. Mikkel, will you wave? That's Mikkel back there. Mikkel keeps me kind of informed of what's going on not only social media, but questions that come into the district. And so some of the things that I put on the slide, I'll start to talk about those, and then if you have questions, I can address those. So tonight, really the goal is a couple-fold. One, to share with the community, the goals of Madison School District, what we focus on, what we're looking at, trying to accomplish during the school year with our teachers, our students, and our community. The next is to talk about our 5 to 10 year strategic plan, where we're going, what that looks like here in the community. The strategic plan is just in the beginning forms with our school board, and in a minute I'll introduce them to you. And then the last is we'll talk about the operational levy that's going to be voted on in May, and I think that's probably some of you while you're here is to ask questions and get information on that. So if you're okay, we'll start there. I'm big on starting on time. I know we'll probably have people roll in, and we're already 3 minutes late to start. So just before we start, I want to introduce our district leadership team. If they would stand, I've got Travis Schwab, our assistant superintendent, Blake Snediger, who is our business manager and finance guru, and then Dionne Ward, who is runs the district, really. If you understand how things work, she runs the district. So appreciate them, and then I appreciate our junior high staff, principals. They're here, Mr. Carlson and Josh. I'm like, Dr. J. So Josh Wilson is here with us, so thank you for being here. So just a welcome. I know all of you can read, but those are kind of the things I already talked about. That's kind of our plan and where we're going to head tonight. I'll introduce our school board. Very first on our school board is Brian Piper, our board chair. Brian, if you want to stand and wave. Brian is, his zone is the Adams area. That's where Brian's at. Our vice chair, Holly Allen. And Holly is over the Lincoln area. That's the area she resides. Then we have J.C. Weber. And J.C.'s out in the Hibbert area. And then Justin Egbert, who is your Burton representative. And then Joe Palmer is out in the South Fork area. And Joe Palmer played for me. That's how long I've been here. Now I have a board member who played high school baseball for me when I came back in late 2000s, because he's a young guy, right? Oh, early 2000s. Yeah, we'll take that. So that is the board. If you live in those areas, those are the folks that can answer questions for you. You can reach out to. Always welcome to reach out to me as well. District goals. So the district really has 3 goals we focus on year to year, and kind of focus on those things. We try not to get too big and too broad. The number one thing we focus on is probably student safety. It's listed third, but the number one thing we have listed on our goals is literacy. We believe that if our students can read, they can do math, they can do science, they can do physical education, they can do health. But if our kids can't read, we're doing them a disservice. And so the statement there, that we won't have a student leave Madison School District not being able to read. We're going to do everything we can. Now, does that happen? Probably. But our goal is to do everything we can through regular education, through our amazing special ed department, to make sure our kiddos get the education they need. And then the second is kindness. There's probably not a person in this room that wouldn't agree that the world could use a little more kindness. And we feel like we start that with our students, by our teachers sharing that, teaching that in the classrooms, talking about kindness, showing examples of kindness. Then our students will leave here being able to read and understanding what kindness looks like and how to be kind. And then the last one is student safety. We have as it says there, we have a multi-layered system of safety. We focus not only on physical health, but mental health. We've got a robust mental health program. All of our teachers, I shouldn't say all because we have quite a quick turnover, but a lot of our teachers, all of our administrative staff, a lot of our bus drivers have all taken mental health first aid for kids. So it doesn't make them an expert in mental health. What it does do is helps them with some tools and some skills to be able to recognize and notice students that may be struggling in the mental health area. It's an area we're always focused on, and we're grateful to have Madison Cares, which is a program, one of probably the only that I'm aware of in the state of Idaho, that has a mental health arm within the school district. So very, very passionate about Madison Cares and how they help within the classroom and in the community. And then we have our reporting tools. Those of you who have students may or may not have heard about CTEL now, but it's a system that the state gives us where they can send a message in anonymously, and it's given to our principals and counselors, whether it be something around suicide, something around bullying, and then those things are addressed at the building level with our principals, counselors, and parents. Try and involve those. And then we talk a lot with our staff about sharing with their students. If you see something, say something. That's the best way to find out if somebody's looking to do harm to a teacher, to their peers, because they usually, history as well as research has shown, they usually talk about it before an act of violence takes place. And so if you hear something and are saying something, that's a big part of us being able to mitigate and help solve that from happening. Not always does it happen, but we miss if you see something, say something. So we try and talk about that with our teachers. The other item is we encourage our staff, teachers, especially in the secondary setting, middle school, junior high, and high school, where they change classes every period, to be out in the halls between classes. That's where 90% of the issues happen, is between classes when there's not a caring adult in the hallway. And so we ask our teachers that 5-minute passing period to be out in the hall. It does 2 things. It helps with safety, and it builds relationships with kids. If I see my classroom teacher in the hall, I'm giving my kid a high five, talking to him about the play they were in or activity they were in last week. It becomes a big issue, and it makes a big deal for those students. They appreciate those relationships. I'll jump ahead to our plan, but before I do that, are there any questions about school safety, about our mission as a district, kind of our 3 goals? Any questions? Yes, sir. Okay.
I just want to thank the Madison County School District. We moved here 5 years ago from Western Washington, had 2 small kids. I got 3 adult kids, and my 3 adult kids that graduated from Washington schools nothing compares to what these guys have learned here. Just in this short period of time, my 11 and my 13-year-old, you guys appear to teach actual, true history. You don't fabricate it. You don't make it up. The American history, my 13-year-old comes home and tells me stuff that I'm like, wow, I remember learning that when I was in school. My other kids did not learn that. The mathematics, you guys, the 5 years we've been here, seem to do a very, very good job. So I just want to thank you guys for that.
Thank you for that. Mikhail's got my back.
So I noticed with each of the three goals, literacy, it seems like that one is easily measurable with some things. How are you measuring the success of and the progress of kindness and the mental health / safety?
Thank you. That's a great question. One of the ways we measure our mental health and what we're doing in that area is the number of reports in bullying that we get reported to us. Now, that can be skewed. I understand, some thoughts on that. Well, they're just not saying anything. I think one of the things that our administrative team and our teachers do a very good job here is they report it, if they're reported to them bullying, and then they work with parents, counselors, students to try and diminish the bullying that's taking place. So that's one way we measure it. And then in our interactions, as we meet with students, as students meet with their guidance counselors, or in the elementary school, the fights out on the playground, or the fighting over whose goal made it in and whose didn't, and some of those. And so we track that. We have to report to the state every year the number of incidents that take place. And so we track that, and we look at that data to determine if we're moving up or if we're dropping. Then we also look at things like holding the door for someone, or getting up and inviting someone to sit with us at lunch in the elementary school. It's constantly being addressed at lunches at our elementaries by our teachers. They have signs up in the cafeteria that talk about being nice, being kind, those type of things. So you're right, that's a hard one to measure, but I think by the number of incidents, and I never want to say we have no incidents of any type of either suicide ideation or any of those things, but I think by having it at the top of our minds, then we're able to look at the data that we do get and make some adjustments there. Okay, thank you, great question. Other questions? Anything else before I move on? Yes? I'll beat you.
What's going to happen with the middle school? The sixth graders will be with seventh graders or else?
Okay, you're jumping ahead. A student right there, she's getting ahead. 5 to 10 year strategic plan. What I want to make very clear, and this happens quite a bit when I talk to even my administrators, I tell them, now remember, we're just talking about this. It's just an idea we're throwing against the wall, seeing what sticks. Sometimes, not even 24 hours later, I'm hearing, oh, we're going to do this as a district. No. The 5 to 10 year plan is just what it is. It's a strategic plan. The 5 board members that you saw in front of you started a discussion, it's probably been 5 years ago, because we're now looking at our new strategic plan, what we want to do as we move forward. So we're looking at some things. Years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, we talked about building a 9th grade center out on the high school property where the band practices. If you're familiar with that, there's a grassy area just to the south, building a 9th grade center. Because right now, Madison School District has 10, 11, and 12 at the high school, 7, 8, and 9 here at the junior high. We're the last one in the state to have that configuration. A lot of the reason we did that was because of buildings and what we had, building size-wise, the size of kids you could put in a building, those type of things. It really doesn't make a lot, and the other thing we would hear a lot of is, I don't want my 9th grade daughter with a senior boy, which I completely understand. I have 3 daughters. I get it. What we see now, more than anything, is it's seeing some of our senior boys are flirting with 7th grade girls. And so really, unless we want to put bars on the window, razor wire around a 9th grade center, it didn't make a lot of sense to try and separate them. It made more sense. Right now, we're transporting twice a day 9th graders from this building over to the high school to be able to take ag classes, to be able to take math classes. Some of our junior high kiddos are in the upper end of our math courses, and so they need to be at the high school taking them because we don't have necessarily enough here. Band and orchestra are traveling occasionally, so there's just a lot of transporting kids back and forth throughout the day that safety-wise it concerns us. Now again, it is Rexburg. We don't have the crazy traffic big cities we have, but there's some crazy driving that goes on around. So we worry about that. Every time we load kids up to leave the high school to come here or send them back, we worry. And so we've talked about doing that. So the question that came right here is, as we look at reconfiguring things, we would put 9 through 12 at the high school. Then we would run 6, 7, and 8 here at this building. The old middle school would then turn into an elementary school and pull kiddos without having to build more elementaries and things like that. We would take kids from Lincoln boundaries a little bit, some from the Lyman area, and then some from the Kennedy area, and make an elementary school over there at the old, it's not really old, the middle school that's currently the middle school right now. And then we would look at moving our 5th graders back into the elementary school. That is an item that's being discussed. No vote on it, no decision has been made. It's just an idea that we're looking at to try and help with buildings. When you build a couple of classrooms on a high school, it's a lot easier, or 10 classrooms on a high school, it's a lot more cost effective than building a junior high or another building. You're looking starting minimum at 20 to 25 million, going up to 60 million-ish and some change. So that's one of the reasons, financially trying to do with what we've got. Yes, sir. She's got you.
So I've been here for 11 years, and I'll be honest, I'm a conservative California refugee. We came here because we had 2 children they were adopted and they had some pretty big problems. So I appreciate the safety part of what you guys are doing. I think it's amazing. The change in our kids, once we came here and got into Madison, was like night and day, right? My question is, will anything change with Central, with your plans?
Great question. So we purchased Central quite a few years ago, probably 30 years ago, 25 years ago, roughly. I can't remember the exact date, from the U.S. government. It was an old armory building. When we bought it, we couldn't do anything structurally, major improvements, or sell it for 30 or up till 2030. If we did, then we would have to pay the back taxes on it. Taxes? I'm looking at my finance guy because I sometimes am screwed up, so. Okay, so basically if we did anything against what we agreed to when we bought it, we would forfeit the property back to the U.S. government and the military. And so our plan is to hold on to it till 2030, and at that time, the board has talked about it. They have to vote on it, but as in their communications is they would put it up for sale or send it out for an RFQ where people would come in, make a bid on it, and then the board could choose at that time to either accept it or reject it. If they felt like none of the bids were what they wanted to get out of that property, they could reject all bids and then sell it as if it were just a piece of property or a home. And that'll take place in 2030 is when we. Great question. So what would we do with our alternative school kids, the Central kids? We would at that point take the money from that sale and build a building for them. And probably build it a little bigger. Right now, we're limited on the number of kids that can go to Central to about 80 to 90 because of the size of the building. We feel like it's a great program. Not all kids are designed for a 1,200 student high school, like at Madison High School. We understand that. And Central offers that option. One of the things that gets me, my heart and blood boiling, is when I hear, oh, Central's for bad kids. That's not true. We have some amazing kids that graduate at Central. Central's an alternative form of education for kids who need a different form. And we recognize in our school district that not all kids learn the same. So we'll build a building. The plan is not to bond for that. We feel like we can, with the sale of that property, because you would probably agree, that's a pretty good piece of property right up there. And so to be able to be smart on selling it, be able to rebuild. And really we're looking at a couple of things, maybe buying land or building out on the far part of the high school, where the high school complex is right now. We own 170 acres out there. The whole front piece on 12th is still owned by the district. And so we would look maybe at something out there. They like to be separate from the high school. They like their title of Central and being Central kids. Those kids that are there take pride in that, and we don't want to diminish that and add them into or put them right onto the high school. Not the high school's bad either. It's just an alternative form for those kids who choose to do that type of education through Central. Is that okay? Right behind Mikhail.
So back to the middle school, I think moving the fifth graders back to the elementary schools is a great idea. Please do that as soon as you can. That's where they belong. But my question is, you can fit like 1,100 students in that school. You're not going to have an elementary school that big. How are you going to utilize that building with just one elementary school? Are you going to move district in there? Are you going to, what are you going to do?
Yeah, no, thank you. Great question. Agree with you 100%. We don't want to have a 1,000-student elementary school. That's just, right? So we've got a couple of things that we are talking about. Nothing's been finalized again. We've talked about making an alternative middle school. Right now, we have 7th and 8th graders going up to the academy. We are seeing a few more discipline problems in younger kids. We used to see discipline in the older. It's starting to trickle down a little bit with some learning disabilities into middle and even elementary. And so we're talking a little bit about having a wing or a section of the middle school as a place where kiddos who may be struggling can go there, develop some skills, get their education, and then work their way back to their home elementary and middle. So that's one of our thoughts there and one of the things that's been kicked around. Welcome to email me or your board rep if you have suggestions. We'll take it. Right now, like I said, we're in the starting discussion phases.
Is there any talk of kindergarten in this? Any talk of going to all-day kindergarten or anything like that?
No, in fact, that's a great question. Thank you. And that's from one of our amazing teachers, so thanks for asking. What we're seeing statewide is they're looking at taking funding away from all-day kindergarten because a lot of districts that went to all-day are backing off for a couple of reasons. One, the parents don't seem to be as happy. I should say the moms of those little ones aren't as happy with those kids going all day, that they're starting to get rid of all-day kindergarten and going back. So right now, that's not the discussion unless the board gets feedback from the community saying we want to do that. That would cause a little bit of a cramping problem in the schools if we were to put kindergarten to all day versus half day, and then fifth grade back, then we would start to be crowded again. So a couple of problems that we've talked about. Other questions? Awesome. Thank you for having great questions. Let's see. And then the last one on there, with this comes boundary realignment. And that's always in communities kind of a fighting phrase, right? We like where we're at. I think there's some real logistics in Rexburg and in Madison County that allow us to align those a little bit and not really shake the world up. Right now we have about 25 to 30 kids that live on this side of 20 that are going to Burton Elementary School. So every day they cross Highway 20. Is it a huge deal? Well, not usually, but during the winter it can be. They're leaving their neighborhood where they hang out. Kids don't run across 20 to play with their friends after school. They stay right in their home neighborhood there. So, some things like that, trying to line things up and put kids and families really so there's not added pressure on them. So it just makes sense as we adjust elementary schools to realign the boundaries.
What type of discussions have you had with the city as far as infrastructure to support this kind of 5-year, 10-year plan?
Great question. We're constantly in conversation with the city, meeting with them. We meet with them, if not monthly, quarterly, and share with them kind of our plans. They let us know. In fact, we had a councilman at our last school board meeting who laid out all of the projected subdivisions that are going to be built not only in Rexburg, but that they're aware of in Madison County as we start to look at our plans and develop, okay, where would we build? For example, out in the Burton area, across from Burton Elementary, that's growing like crazy in our plans that we have for that property. If that blows up like they say it's supposed to, right, they're talking about 200 more homes in that area is what we're being told. If that were to happen, we do have land to build a second elementary right there by Burton. So you would have Burton and Burton too. I mean, it wouldn't be, but it would be very similar. If we've got 1,200 kids coming from that area right there around Burton Elementary, we would want 2 elementaries. It's just not, it's not as safe for those kids, and it diminishes their opportunity for a better education. So, does that help? Does that answer?
Relocating 9th grade to the high school obviously increases people there from this side of 20.
Sure.
And there's really only 2 access points. And it's just the congestion, I feel, would need to be considered.
Yeah, thank you.
Within
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. A week ago, I was in a meeting with the city, the county, and ITD. And there are plans and discussions of taking 7th over 20, so that would come down right there by Burton. There's also discussions of, trying to remember, it's out in Hibbard by the Moody Highway. Thank you, JC. Moody Highway, and taking it. They're trying to decide now if they would go up and over or under. But right there at that, on Moody Highway, on the Hibbard side, there's that huge pond. There's like 2 ponds, but right there as it makes the corner, there's a pond there. And so they're trying to figure out what they would do there. ITD doesn't love, right now they don't love Rexburg's on and off ramps so close together because they have a set window now, or a set space, and that space has not been met, but they're willing to have conversations, recognizing that and we learned it when they shut down the exits to build you shut down those 2 exits, where do people go? And for first responders, it becomes a real issue. If one of those is blocked off, how do they get over? So that is a discussion that we've been involved in, and they've been really good with us, and we've kind of laid out where we're headed, and they've shared with us. Any other questions? Board members, anything from you? Sorry.
Sorry, back to the realigning elementary boundaries. Would you consider, would you consider aligning those boundaries sooner than a 5-year plan? Just because I know Adams is empty and Hibbard is booming.
Thank you. Yeah, that has been a discussion. Again, this is all just throwing it against and see what sticks. As we hear that there may be those concerns, it could happen before, I guess is what I'm saying. We haven't talked about it before. We talked about it, doing it at the same time we move the 9th grade and kind of do all one shift. But if we see things continuing to grow, then we may. So, but thank you. I mean, knowing that people are interested in it being sooner gives us, because it's always a worry, right? Anytime you realign in our business, people get worked up a little, and we're not trying to offend anybody. We're just trying to do our best. So, thank you. Anything else? Board, anything? I've talked a lot.
One thing that is probably wise for the community to be paying attention to is that the state legislature right now has not been very friendly to public education. This session in particular, I think, is one of the worst that I can remember in terms of the burden that's been placed on the school systems because of the legislation that's been passed this year. So I would just urge you not to vote in a particular way, but to be paying attention. Because some of the things that are happening now are going to make it hard for us to do what we need to do. Years ago, we call them the Luna years. If you remember when Tom Luna was the state superintendent of schools, that we felt like at the board level that we were playing defense for the school district against what was happening from the state level. And for the last, up until about probably 2 or 3 years ago, from 10 or 12 years ago, we haven't felt that as strongly. And these last 2 years in particular have been hard, that we're feeling like that we're going back to that, having to defend our school district against the decisions that are being made at the state level. Partly just because of the attitude that some in the legislature have about public education in general, and partly also in that some of the things that are happening in other parts of the state are just not happening here. So when they make decisions that are based on things that are happening in other parts of the state that are not happening here, it does impact us. And your being aware of that as members of our community is helpful to us, because then the voices that we respond back to our legislatures with are not just our voices, that it's the voice of our community. So, yes, sir. Some of those things. All right, so the first one that's going to affect us a lot that we still don't really know first if the governor's going to sign it, or if he just decides not to sign it and it still becomes law, or if he decides to veto it. We don't know. But last week, at the very end of the session, the legislature gutted the bill that they had originally proposed to make clearer the rules about who could use what bathrooms. They had a bathroom bill that they passed last year, and then they were going to clarify some of the things that a recent district court had found invalid. And so that was what that bill was supposed to be, and the House passed it and sent it over to the Senate. And the Senate amended the bill to remove everything in the bill and replaced it with a bill that makes it so that the teachers' associations can't do anything that is attached to the school district. They can't use our communication materials, they can't use our facilities, they can't use our payroll settings to deduct dues for their members, and they can't negotiate with us about their salaries. So for all of these years, for the last probably 6 years, Miss Allen and I have been on the district's negotiating team to negotiate with the teachers about their contracts. And this bill says that now we can't do that anymore. And we don't know how that's going to happen going forward. And we have had a really good relationship with our Teachers Association for these last probably 8 years. I know that in some places in the state, the districts do not have good relationships with their teachers associations, and these negotiations are acrimonious and bitter. They go on for months at a time, and they have to go to mediation because they can't find a contract. Sometimes the teachers will go back to school in the fall without contracts because they still haven't finished their negotiations. We have never had that at Madison, at least in the 15 years I've been on the board. And I'm a little nervous that this bill is going to hamper that good relationship that we've had with our Teachers Association, and we don't know what the legal fallout's going to be. Last year, the passage of the private school, of using public monies to go to private schools, that was a concern for us. And we have 2 private schools that are being built in Madison County right now. There has been efforts to make it harder for school districts to pass bonds and levies about how often we can run elections and how long we can set aside monies for bond repayment, that those things have all changed in the last couple of years. So it's just, those are just some examples of the things that we're paying attention to legislative-wise. And generally, I would say that our legislators are pretty good. You know, Ms. Raybold and Mr. Weber are wonderful. Mr. Ricks has been pretty good. So that's the answer to your question. Is that satisfactory? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Other questions? So I used to use this statement. I can't say it anymore the way I have it. These two words up here are the worst four-letter words I get to speak. But now it's levies instead of levy that I have up here. But as a superintendent, I, first off, love my job. I get to work with the best teachers, I believe, in the state of Idaho. We have amazing students that are, come to school prepared. Parents are reading with them. We've got a great community that supports what we do. So I have the best job in the world. I tell people that all the time. Madison School District hired me as a teacher. They couldn't figure out how to get rid of me, so I just kept going along. I spent 10 years in this building and the old one as principal of junior high. Love junior high kids. They say what they think. I felt like we could make the most in junior high kids. Never signed up. I did because I knew what I was getting into, to have to do bonds and levies. It's the worst part of our job. And it's not because we don't feel the support of our community, but we understand what taxes means for folks, right? We understand that the way the framers of the Constitution wanted us all. I'm a former government teacher, so I understand a little bit about this, but the framers of the Constitution had a plan so we could all kind of share. I don't think the framers saw some of the stuff that goes on today, as Mr. Piper talked about. But with that, some of you are here to talk about this. You probably got great information up to this point, but to talk about bonds and levies. Madison School District, since 2015, has had a levy on the books. If you look at your tax bill, right now Madison County has 6 items on there. Number 1 is the tort levy on your tax bill. We can't do anything about that. That's written in the Constitution. Every school district in the state of Idaho has that on there. It helps with really major things that happen in a district, either a lawsuit, a building collapse. That's what the tort covers. Then we have the one that's being up for election in May, and that's the operational levy. In 2015, the board at that time elected to run an operational levy for $1.995 million. That price tag hasn't changed. And really, to be honest with you, what was purchased with those dollars hasn't changed. Altered a little, put money in different spots. So we have one levy. Right now, we currently have 4 bonds. The first bond on there is for the high school bond when we started to build the high school. Realized real quickly the next year that with everything that we saw growth-wise, in 2 years we saw over 100 students come to Rexburg. Realized we were going to be in trouble. So then the board chose to go out and do a second bond, build the high school a little bigger. Instead of building it for 1,000 kids, it was built for about 1,500 roughly. So that's the first 2 bonds that are on there. Those bonds, one will be paid off this year, one will be paid off next year. One of the questions that has come up in social media is why not take the House Bill 292 money, and that 292 money was set aside. It was given to districts throughout the state to pay off bonds, levies, and then first off to pay off bond debt, then levy debt, and then from there pay off or help with major construction. And so we've taken that money, and both the bonds that will be paid off this year and next year are being paid off roughly 5 years early on each one of them. They're 20-year bonds. We'll have this one paid off. The first one paid off this year, and the second one paid off next year. Then the third bond that's on the books is what we use to build Burton Elementary and South Fork Elementary, add some classrooms onto the high school, and also help build the athletic complex out there, the stadium, the track. And then the fourth bond was to remodel this building, came in and added some classrooms on the south end Built Hibbard Elementary, because as was mentioned, Hibbard was exploding, and this building we had out there was one hallway, 8 classrooms. It's crazy to think that how much Hibbard's grown. And so, so that's what that 4th bond is for. The last 2 bonds, they're right around 10 to 12 years before those are paid off. This group of board members in front of you take bonding very seriously. That's why they're looking at the 5 to 10 year strategic plan without trying to build a whole lot. The next question that we had come up on social media is, you just sold the district office for $7 million. Why don't you take that $7 million, use $1 million a year for 7 years, and you wouldn't have to ask for a levy? The problem with that is as you see up here, bonds and levies, bonds can only be used for major construction projects, major building, major things. They can't be used in the same situation as a levy. So the high school, back in 1950, 60, roughly when that was built, which is now the district office that we just sold, bond money was used to build that. We can't take and use that for salaries. We can't take and use that for benefits. We can't take and use that for curriculum or technology. It's got to be back for buildings. So, yes, sir.
Where do those rules come from?
So those are in Idaho code.
It's Idaho code.
Yeah, and I'm not an attorney. What we do is when we start this process, we have an attorney we work with out of Boise that works specifically on Idaho code and on Idaho law. And even before we talk about selling a building, because it was bought with bond money, there are just a lot of restrictions on bond dollars that are written into Idaho code that I'm not an expert on. I'll be the first to admit it. We reach out and tell our attorney what we're thinking of doing. He says, can't. Do, don't do that because you don't look good in orange. So, so anyway, does that answer where those come from? Okay. And then levies, really levy dollars are used or come because what the state gives us to operate is not enough. Right now, the state gives us about 96 paid positions for our classified folks, which is bus drivers, classroom aides, paras, folks that help within the classroom. We have about 134 that we have on payroll because we feel like it helps not only our teachers, but it helps those kids that are struggling. It also helps our teachers so that they can have a 2nd pair or 3rd pair and sometimes 4th pair of hands in a classroom where there may be a handful of kiddos who are struggling with ADD. Me, I was a kid that had, well, it's now ADD. Back in the day, it was ASS. So I was naughty. And so that's what this helps with, is kids that may be struggling with a learning disability, any of those things. So questions about that? Difference between a bond and a levy? Okay. Okay, great question.
What are you going to do with the money from selling the district office?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, what are we doing with the $7 million we got from the district office? So currently in the district office, so everybody has an idea of what's in there right now. We have our district leadership team. We have special services. We have all of our school psychologists and speech pathologists. Also Madison Cares are in that building. So we've got to find a home for them because right now they're homeless. The building right behind the district office towards Taco Time, back in the day that building was a junior high. It was an ag shop. Sorry, Taco Bell, not Taco Time, thank you. It was an ag shop and a wood shop. Right now our grounds department uses that as a place that's their home. They have their equipment in there. About 10 years ago when we moved over to that building, we moved grounds into there, and we saw a significant decline in our having to buy new equipment. Our equipment lasted longer, didn't have to replace batteries, lights, all the stuff because they were stored inside instead of outside. Before that, we just had them stored in an outside area of gravel. They've got to have a home. So we're taking right now, if you've been out to the high school, just west of the high school on University Boulevard behind the seminary building is a building going up right now. That will be where we have our grounds and maintenance. So those two will move into there. It'll be a place that they can still store their stuff. And then The plan is the board has been working on it on the corner of Bobcat Boulevard, which is the road that you turn into to go to the tennis courts and the field house. On that corner right there will be a district office built. Right now, we're in the process of getting architectural plans and designs. All those people we talked about that are going to be out of a home in a month and a half, we have to be out by the 1st of July, are going to be set throughout the district. We have mobile classrooms that we've tried to get kids back into schools and out of mobile classrooms. So that's where they'll be. For example, our special ed department will be at the trailer at Adams. The district office folks will be at the 2 construction trailers next to the field house on Bobcat Boulevard, just because we're trying to help people not go, okay, well, 2 years ago you were here, and now you want to try and keep people coming to the same. One of our goals, and I say ours, one of the board's goals, and mine as well, is to try and utilize as much of that 170 acres, because that 170 acres is school, so it's tax exempt. And so by selling the district office to the Urban Renewal Group, the city, county, their plan is to get somebody to purchase that front property, a developer. That'll all go back on the tax rolls, which is downtown Main Street property. And so we're cognizant of that. We have the conversation as a board. They talk about how do we support the tax rolls. And so that's where we're at. Does that help? Okay. Yes, sir.
Explain, you said I think it was 2016 is when the current levies started happening? Is that right?
2015. But
2015.
yeah.
What happened to cause that to now just keep rolling over?
We never did. We still have not got from the state what it takes to operate schools. So we're in the people business, right? We have kids and staff. So 90-ish, 89 to 90-ish of our budget is spent on salary and benefits that we get from the state. So one of the things, to answer your question, levy money we use to buy curriculum. The state says, oh, we're going to have a math curriculum adoption next year. Everybody in the state has to jump on that math adoption. They give us a choice of who to use, and so then we have a team that goes out. Mr. Schwab runs that for us, and they go out and they look at different vendors. They say, oh, you're going to adopt, here's $60,000. Good luck. It's about, the last adoption we spent was over $600,000, and they gave us 60. So trying to fill that gap, and part of that came with the Common Core at that time when they switched. The state switched to a Common Core, so then our math, our English, and so we had those that came up and just kept coming. Then COVID hit, and all of a sudden we needed 6,000 computers to go home and support our kids, right? Now, not every kid needed a computer, but we didn't want kids going home without the ability to have school. Didn't know how long it was going to last, so we purchased Chromebooks at that time. 3,000 of those Chromebooks are 7 years old this year, and we're looking at replacing those. School safety, that's another item. We have, at this building alone, we have over 200 cameras around the building. High school well, maybe not 200. What do we have, Mr. Carlson? Over 100. The high school has roughly 200. So, and all of our buildings have at least 24 cameras. We don't have someone sitting watching cameras all day long. We use it to help with, who got pushed down in the lunchroom, who tripped over, whose lunch pail got stolen, but it also helps with when we have people break into our schools. So all those things. So, yeah.
So the shortfall that we're experiencing is because the state is not, they're mandating certain things, and those things can't be paid for by what the state's giving us, so then we have to keep making up the difference.
So that's right. We come to the local taxpayers, our community, and say, hey, here's our shortfall. Will you help us?
And is that common around the state?
There's 115 school districts that have some sort of operational levy. One of the things this board has chose not to do is put salary and benefits for contracted staff, which is our teachers. So in school districts, we have a certified and a classified. Our certified folks are on contracts, so they have a contract with the school board. Our classified folks are bus drivers, our lunch personnel, grounds, maintenance, custodial, and they're on a year-to-year. If we get hit hard and we know that we may not be able to fund all that we do, and it's going to take a big toll on the budget. At that point, we would try not to ever fire people or riff. We try and do things through natural attrition. And fortunately, being in a college town, we've been able to do that, right? We hire college kids sometimes. They go away, we just don't backfill. But that's really, yeah, there's, to answer your question, 115 school districts that have that.
So we're not actually spending more money, we're just not getting what the state used to give us that would satisfy our needs.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah. So to help with that, the state has what's called the state salary schedule, which is what the state says, this is what we're giving you money for teaching staff. Our district with the board and our teachers union agreed to be on that state salary schedule. Other districts around the state pay over and above, and they have their operational levy to pay for those over and above. We have not, and we've been fortunate and able to do that.
So we can pretty much, based on what you're saying, we can pretty much expect to be in a perpetual levy situation now because decisions have been made outside of our scope to not give us the money that we need.
I can
from the
give you my opinion, and then I'll tell you what this group of board members have told me in front of you. My opinion is I don't see it changing with some of the things that are happening in the legislature. That's why our conversation, we talked about elections as I walked in with this good gentleman. And, you know, we have a town of our size, and in the last election, we had 2,000 people show up to vote. That's sad, right? I mean, we have that right to be able to vote, and we only get two. I know people are busy, and in Rexburg, people suffer from committee fatigue because you're on the soccer committee, all those. So for me, I don't know that it'll change. This board, one of their goals is to get to a point where we don't ask for a levy. So correct, yeah, and that's why I don't see that changing, because I haven't seen any laws or proposed laws in the legislature that, hey, we need to do this. Happens every February. I take this amazing group, we go over to Boise with all 130 some odd districts in the state. They go over there, and when we talk about our legislators, Representative Weber, Representative Raybould are 100%. If I have an idea of how to do that, I send it to them. They work it up, they run it up the ladder, usually get sent right back away. But there are folks that are trying, but right now the makeup of the current legislature out of Boise is not interested in they're just telling school districts, put 40 kids in a classroom. We're not going to do that. This board believes having in a kindergarten classroom 18 to 22 kids is plenty in a kindergarten classroom, and 22 is probably on the high end. And so, oh, and yes, thank you, Ms. Allen. The Idaho School Boards Association also has that recommendation on the numbers of students in a classroom. So, yeah. So to answer your question, they're trying to. And I think one of the things as we move down the road, 20 years ago, a lot of our buildings in this district were old, run down. They hadn't been taken care of. This community, I mean, we had almost an 80% pass rate on our first 3 bonds. First 2, maybe. I'm trying to have 56 and 2/3, or 66 and 2/3, supermajority to pass a bond. They passed because people recognized that there was a need to update our buildings. And so with that, once we get to a point where our buildings are running smoothly and updated, if we don't see a massive growth, then some of those monies we get from the state that we aren't using to upgrade buildings and things like that could be looked at that. Every year, the state of Idaho has in code that you can, if you have, it's a growth rate. If you have too many students over when you start school in the next year, you can go out for a levy that really this board decides on, and they don't send it out to a vote to the community. This board has chosen, every year we've had an increase in students. They've chosen not to go for that levy. They've said, we'll stay with our operational levy, leave it at that. It's called an emergency levy, and this board has chosen not to do that because they value the opinion of our patrons. And I don't say it because they're sitting here, they've said it to me multiple times. So, yes, sir.
I think that for a lot of us, we're just feeling a lot of levy and bond fatigue. It just seems like continually more bonds, levies, we see our taxes, and it's for, and you explained them, but 4 bonds or, a levy, and it's just exhausting, especially when so often the message going out is, oh, it's not going to cost you anything because you'll be paying the same amount of tax as you ever did. Well, it's true because it's just been ongoing for so many years. And I feel that's a little disingenuous to say it's not going to up your taxes when already that's an increase in taxes right from the start. No increase in taxes is no bonds, no levies. And so I just think that's one thing that I think you're going to continue to find at some point. And I think, yeah, you can say, well, there's things that maybe we can be more economical on. Maybe not. Maybe it's small amounts, but like you mentioned, the additional computers that were bought during COVID. Well, COVID's over, so do all of them need to be replaced? Probably not. Are we waiting for another COVID? I mean, are there things that we can do that can lessen that impact? Because at some point, I fear that the majority of the people will just say, no, we're done. I mean, how long does it have to go?
Yeah. Great question, or great comment. Thank you. I think that's why instead of 6,000 computers, we're only doing 3, because we're not going to do, to your point, right? We're not preparing for COVID again. I mean, heaven help us, but yeah. So some of those things, I agree with you. I think our messaging in that is we want people to know that what you're currently paying, we're not asking for more. When the board started out having the discussion about a levy a year ago in our board meetings, every board meeting, it's brought up, we talk about it. The conversation at that point was maybe we move that up to $5 million, kind of look at it. Then as they thought about it, listened to patrons, they said, you know what? We're not going to go there. We're going to do exactly, I mean, could we use it? I'm going to tell you right now, we could use it. We just had a heating and air conditioning unit go out at the high school. It wasn't the same price as my heating and air conditioning unit at my home. That's $8,000. It was over $242,000 to replace it and another $200,000 to install it. That's $500,000 for a heating and air unit. Luckily, we have one of our maintenance guys on staff as a heating and air guy. We're able to work with him a little bit, have him, one guy, work on it for a couple of weeks and install it. So we're grateful for those type of things. But that, I guess that's why I say we never are trying to be dishonest or and lie to people. That's not how we felt. We felt like we're not increasing taxes. Yeah, you're going to continue to pay what you've always paid. So I appreciate your comment on that. Thank you. Other questions? I know we're at 7 o'clock, and been great questions. I don't want to rush through, but so that's the flyer. You've seen it. That's just, it's not a vote yes or no. It's just informational. So the QR code will take you to any of the questions you have. Before we end, and I want to give time for questions, there were just a couple of things that I wanted to address. House Bill 521 was a $24 million check 2 years ago. Governor Little came to Rexburg, stood in our gym, and gave us a check that was about like this big. And that $24 million, just what it was titled, is a school modernization money. So 2 years ago, the legislature says we're no longer going to send maintenance money to school districts. We'd get somewhere around $1 million, $1.5 million to put new roofs on, do our parking lots, do sidewalks, all the maintenance. Legislature says we're going to take that away. We're going to go out to a state bond, get a bunch of millions of dollars, and send it to school districts. Our $24 million has to last us 10 years. For 10 years, so what our amazing business manager did and our board, we took that $24 million and we deposited it. And we've been able to, fortunately, start to use some of that interest to pay for some of our smaller parking lots to be refinished, to pay for some of our roofs, to pay for some of our remodels. recognizing that each year we spend about $2 million in maintenance with toilets. High school's got 1,200 kids going through it, besides basketball, volleyball, orchestra, people using the facilities. Those things don't last as long as they would in our homes. And so we're trying to be very judicious in how we spend that $24 million, knowing that, you know, there's 2 of those heating and air units on the high school. There's 2 here. We have those throughout the district. So trying to be very cautious in that. That money, this will kind of describe kind of what we talked about tonight. That money is school modernization. If we wanted to recarpet one classroom, the state would slap our hand, and I don't know if they'd fine us or if they'd take part of our money away because it wasn't designed for regular maintenance. But if we wanted to recarpet a school, we could take that money and recarpet the school, but we can't just do one classroom. Silly, right? I mean, I shake my head when I have these discussions. So that's a lot. Mikhail, are there any questions online that we had? No questions online. Okay, I wanted to get to those. Before we end, are there any questions that I did not get to that I could answer that you have concerns about?
I just want to share one thing that has to do with what this gentleman talked about. So, based on what you guys said, it's a real predicament because control is not in our hands. According to the way it's been laid out, the state's causing a shortfall, right? The percentage of income to mortgage right now in Madison County is higher than any other county in the state, right? It's 51%. So that's huge. 51% of the average person's money is going towards their mortgage. So because of that, these levies, they're very pressure laden, right? People are already on the edge, right? So I can understand why there's so much emotion and feeling about this because people are kind of, and then the police department wants, you know, their bond, and there's all these other expenses. My question is, if the economy has a downturn, do you guys have a strategy or plan in place to scale back if you have to? Or do you even have the ability to? Or are you locked into spending the money you have?
Yeah, I think great question, and I think so. I was part of this leadership team when we had the recession in 2008. I was a building principal at the time, and I mentioned it earlier, and this is probably our #1 plan. And then we go to work if we were to have another recession. We're very fortunate in this community to have the university that we hire some of their teachers with. If we were to take a downturn, the #1 thing we would look at is natural attrition. Try and keep people employed. Class sizes would go up. It's never a fun thing. I got teachers in here that if they're like, class sizes are going up, I'm retiring, right? And they're only 32. She's only 32 back there. And they're like, right? Because you can imagine just in your own house, love your kids, but if you had 32 of your children running around your house, it's difficult to talk to them, let alone educate them. And so I think our #1 plan would be we would look at natural attrition. I don't believe as a district we spend frivolously. I think when we spend, it's for our people. If we're fortunate enough to have a little extra money towards the end of the year, this board has voted to do a one-time bonus for teachers going into Christmas. Instead of giving them a turkey, they do a one-time bonus, which we're very proud of being able to do. We focus a lot on using, instead of paper, trying to cut back on what we spend there using digital, some of those things. So to answer your question, in that area, I don't think we're over the top. I feel like we pay our teachers a good wage. Sure, we'd like to pay them higher, but they recognize getting into this profession. They know what they signed up for. I tell them all the time how much I appreciate them, and that's not blowing smoke. I really mean it, because I know what they do. I know what they do for our kids. I know what they do to this community. And so it would be hard as you look at having to cut teachers, but at 90 to 92% of your budget, when you're cutting, that's where you're looking at cutting. Transportation-wise, you drive by the middle school and you'd think after school ends, we don't transport anybody, as the cars are lined up halfway up 7th and around Yellowstone. We do transport close to 4,000 kids a day, and so we have buses that we purchase and want to have those safe. So this board talks about the budget every board meeting. We have a budget brief. Our budget is on the website. There's nothing we hide. Once in a while, I'll hear, well, you guys are hiding this, you're hiding that. We're a public entity. You can come in and ask to see. Mr. Snedeker will spend days talking budget, and he loves it. And that's a crazy thing. And we're happy to do it because we don't have anything to hide. And if people have suggestions, that's why we do a night like tonight. And so that's why, on behalf of our school board, myself as a superintendent, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come at least have a conversation, and thank you for your input. Before I turn it over to Chairman Piper, are there any other questions I can answer? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy. The first and most important duty of the school board is to hire the superintendent. And although I do think that we have the best superintendent in the state, I'm not the only one. Randy received the Superintendent of the Year award from the Idaho Association of School Administrators this past year. And so I think he deserves a round of applause. Thank you. Now, I have two things that I want to bring out, and I'm going to get into the weeds just a little. So be patient, because I hope that this makes sense. Okay, as Randy pointed out, about 90% of the school district's budget comes from the state. And about 88 to 89% of that money that we get from the state goes straight to salaries and benefits. We pass that straight through as wages. And although we can negotiate with that a little bit, we have tried as a board to have that money just be passed through, so that when we go to negotiate with the teachers, that they can rely on that. About 6 to 8% of our budget comes from the federal government. And of that money, all of it goes to special services. So special needs students, the various titles, monies, you hear about Title I, Title II, Title III of the Education Act of 1974, those monies are mandated to be spent for the needs of special needs students. And that's, like I said, that's about 6 to 8% of our budget, and that's also pass-through money. And that money is audited every year. That we have separate audits, one from the feds and one from our local auditor that goes through and looks at our books every year and verifies that we're spending the money as we say we are. That leaves, as you can count, about 2% of our budget, which comes from our local levies and bonds. So it's not a big amount, but it's an amount that makes it possible for us to do these extra things that we know that our community values. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second is, I don't want you to be confused about what happens to our bond and levy money, because I think that the perception out there is that these tax dollars just disappear, that they're gone, that they're lost. But what actually happens with that money is, for example, the bond money, we hire a general contractor who then does the plans and sets up the subcontractors and does all of the building construction. And those people are local. So the money that we spend for bonds goes to buying materials and paying wages of the people that build the schools. And those people are local. So all of that money goes back into the local economy. It's not like that we're secreting it away somewhere or that it gets lost or goes away. The materials that I have read and studied about this show that that money gets recycled in the economy about 7 times. That the wages that they pay to these contractors and things like that, they buy groceries at our stores and they buy gasoline at our gas stations, and that money just gets recycled back around in our economy about 7 times. The levy money is the same. That money goes into paying our bus drivers and lunch ladies and paras and classroom aides, and that their wages then go back into our local economy. So there's a little, I will admit, that probably goes into buying, I don't know, pens and pencils and paper and stuff like that. Most of that is going to come from our local distributors for stuff like that. And some of it, will get bought on Amazon or bidded for suppliers that give us school district materials. So the main point that I want to get out of this first is that we're trying to be as responsible as we possibly can with your tax dollars. That's why they call us trustees. And the second is that the money that you trust us with to educate your kids and to administer the school district goes right back into our local economy. We're not doing anything else with it but that. And we appreciate the support that you have for your kids, for our school district, our community, and for us as trustees. I feel that when we go out to try to run levies and bonds, that we had the last bond that we ran had something like 82% support, which is unprecedented. Nobody else in the state enjoys that kind of support from their local communities, and we appreciate it. We're glad that you're here tonight, that you're here and paying attention matters. Sometimes we'll have board meetings where it's just the 5 of us and a couple of people from the school district. And, we would love for the district community to come and pay attention to what we're doing. We're being as transparent as we can, probably more than is required of us. And we love Rexburg. We love your kids. Our kids are going to the same schools. And we're a church with you and going to the basketball games and choir concerts and marching band performances and all of the things that happen in a public school that make it the place that help our kids to become what they have the potential to become. Thank you.
I just did want to give one other thing, my email address and my office phone number. If you have questions, please reach out to me. Email address is lordsr@msd321.com, and I will, within 24 hours, get back to any email. And then my office number is 208-359-3300. On my email is also my cell number, 208-313-3252. I'm not opposed to having a conversation. Thank you. Have a good night.